Hello YouTube, Validation Boy here. So guys, it seems like the more we look into everyday things, the more hoaxes we are finding to expose. Dinosaurs, hoax. Space travel, hoax. Oil scarcity, hoax. Federal Reserve and all the fluctuations of our economy, hoax. Every single mainstream news narrative, hoax. Yes, everything seems to be one giant hoax. I drew my inspiration to make this video from the work of Aaron Dover, who has proposed the idea that volcanoes, tornadoes, and even hot springs are probably all just hoaxes. I figured, hey, why wouldn't traffic jams involve hoaxery too? Now, I'm pretty sure nobody else has covered this topic on YouTube yet, but I believe this is a very pertinent issue that deserves a bit of research. As some of you know, my particular slave job is that of a delivery driver. There's a very high probability that I spend a lot more time driving the roads than you do. Over the last few months, I've noticed an increase in manufactured bottleneck traffic jams. I can't even tell you how many times recently in which I've been stuck in a row of cars, boiling with frustration as nobody moves forward, only to find that once I actually have the chance to see what's slowing everybody down, it turns out to be nothing but a row of traffic cones arbitrarily placed there for no reason other than to cut off available lanes. And on top of that, the construction workers you'd expect to see nearby are nowhere to be found. Just a line of orange cones which magically appeared during rush hour to needlessly constrict the flow of traffic. I believe this is being done to create the illusion of road space scarcity. Our government hates the fact that we can travel anywhere we want at any time, and I think that the sooner they can get us all to stop using our own autonomous means of transportation, the sooner they can implement the many other horrors they have waiting for us. They want us sectioned off into zones, which they hope can dramatically decrease the size of our individual realities. They don't want us interacting with wide varieties of people unless it is through their heavily monitored and controlled social media platforms. I presented this concept to a coworker today, and his response was all too predictable. His thinking was that the oil industry is so big and so dependent on our reliance on their products, the last thing they'd want to do is push society into a primarily pedestrian lifestyle. However, if we gave up our rights to car ownership and were subsequently no longer allowed to purchase our own fuels, the prices of such fuels could be even more easily manipulated. By keeping the common pedestrian in the dark about what shipping truly costs, even more of our slave wages could be taken from us on a weekly basis at the grocery checkout. It's clear the government wants to eradicate private transportation privileges from all the larger cities. Sure, on the surface this idea appears to make perfect sense. However, the reasons larger cities would want to move in this direction do not currently apply to my hometown, as it is quite spread out. But we are starting to see such schemes taking place in the more densely populated areas. Orlando, of course, has a long way to go before it reaches the population density of New York City, but I am still seeing the concept starting to come into play, and I have a funny feeling it's only going to get worse. So I went ahead and did a Google search for "traffic jams are a hoax." And to my surprise, I found two mainstream news items concerning this idea. The first one is from the New York Post, and I'm going to read it in its entirety. So let's get started. This article goes all the way back to December 2nd of 2016. It's by Sean Cohen, Yov Gonen, and Laura Italiano, and it's called "The Real Reason for New York City's Traffic Nightmare." City officials have intentionally ground Midtown to a halt, with the hidden purpose of making drivers so miserable that they leave their cars at home and turn to mass transit or bicycles, high-level sources told the Post. Today's gridlock is the result of an effort by the Bloomberg and de Blasio administrations over more than a decade of redesigning streets and ramping up police efforts, the sources said. The traffic is being engineered, a former New York Police Department official told the Post, explaining a long-term plan that began under Mayor Mike Bloomberg and hasn't slowed with Mayor de Blasio. The city streets are being engineered to create traffic congestion, to slow traffic down, to favor bikers and pedestrians, the former official said. There's a reduction in capacity through the introduction of bike lanes and streets and lanes being closed down. The concerted effort includes pedestrian plazas that have cut off entire lanes of traffic and created bottlenecks, protected bike lanes on major avenues that eat up a traffic lane and force trucks to double park, cross streets where turns are forbidden on nearly all avenues, intersections where drivers must wait for green arrows to turn onto avenues, ordering traffic agents to focus more on writing tickets and less on directing traffic. The goal of the jammed traffic is to shift as many drivers as possible to public transit or bicycles. An added benefit was supposed to be safer streets, but city officials have said that while 45,000 fewer cars and trucks now come into Midtown daily than in 2010, pedestrian deaths are on the uptick this year. The driver headaches began under Bloomberg in 2003 with his Through Streets program that prohibits drivers from turning onto most avenues from 9 Midtown cross streets during weekday hours. Bloomberg then tried to drastically cut vehicle traffic with a congestion pricing program that would have charged drivers to enter Midtown. Albany nixed that plan in 2007, and the next year, Bloomberg changed tactics. He again targeted drivers with his ambitious Green Light for Midtown project, which, starting in 2009, installed roadway narrowing redesigns of Columbus Circle, Broadway, Times Square, and Herald Square. Green Light includes pedestrian plazas and protected bike lanes that are still being completed under de Blasio, who has further snarled traffic with reduced speed limits, redesigned intersections, and aggressive summons writing as part of his Vision Zero initiative. This all goes back to when Bloomberg wasn't getting his congestion pricing, so they started doing other things, a second source said. They're not coming out and saying it, but they're doing other things to cut down on traffic coming into the city. Things such as taking streets that had 4 lanes and making them 3 by creating bike lanes or putting a plaza in, creating pedestrian islands, the source said. They're purposefully cutting down on the number of vehicles coming into the city by cutting down the space for vehicles. The source said de Blasio doesn't even care about traffic and noted that the mayor could now blame congestion on President-elect Donald Trump, whose Trump Tower in Midtown is now ringed with security. He really doesn't care, the source said. Instead of working around it and helping it out, he'll just blame everything on Trump. Adding to the gridlock, traffic agents are being ordered to focus more on writing tickets and less on keeping vehicles moving. Almost nobody's doing traffic direction anymore. Everybody's focused on enforcement of parking violations, said the former officer who was a liaison with the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. The NYPD declined to comment. De Blasio spokesman Austin Fanon on Friday denied any effort by City Hall to slow down cars. The notion that we want or are somehow engineering traffic congestion is absurd, he said. Economic growth, record tourism, construction activity, and a growing population means our streets are overburdened like never before. Department of Transportation and NYPD work extremely hard to keep New Yorkers moving on our streets safely and efficiently by foot, bus, car, and bike. Still, Manhattan has become a vehicular hell where drivers suffer an average speed of 8.2 miles per hour. Among them was some fucking guy who was stuck in a traffic jam on the Manhattan side of the Queens Midtown Tunnel Friday. This is a bad idea. Bad idea. Troy Johnson, sitting in the same traffic jam, was furious at the insider's allegations of an effort by City Hall to clog traffic. If it's true, he said, you are going to see some serious road rage. Pretty interesting, wouldn't you say? Did you guys notice how the article mentioned that feud between Trump and de Blasio concerning parking spaces to keep you distracted and trapped within that left-right political paradigm instead of actually focusing on the real issue at hand? Do you guys see how Agenda 21 and the Green Movement could play so well into all of this? Anyways, for these agendas to work best, you as a commoner must be kept in a state of constant frustration while operating your vehicle. Let's not forget that they can always use the news media to claim traffic is much worse than it really is. I suspect that they hope such manipulations will motivate people to avoid travel and to spend what little free time we even do have left locked away in our homes, right where the government wants us. Let's take a look at the second Google entry I found on this subject. This one was really more of a video than an article, and it came to us from, News 9 in Wyoming, I guess. I'm not going to show the video, but it is linked below. The story concerns people in the Northwest who had traveled to see the eclipse. The news anchor tells us about a new breed of conspiracy theorists they've dubbed traffic truthers. Well, I guess Validation Boy is now officially a traffic truther. The funniest part about this ridiculous story is the fact that to demonstrate how stupid these so-called traffic truthers are, they use images which could have been captured at any time and don't even depict bad traffic in the first place. Now, I'm also fully aware of how accidents can slow down traffic, but when you really think about it, the only time accidents should really affect anything are when they take place on mega highways being traversed by large amounts of cars. And even then, this shouldn't have the power to slow everything down the way that it does. It still just somehow manages to. Now, there is one more item to ponder, and it might be the most obvious reason behind all these problems. Traffic lights. You know how it goes. You're sitting there at a red light that takes way longer than it should to change. You find yourself wondering why in the hell you're sitting there looking at a red light while the cross street in front of you is totally empty but still has the green light. These lights can be controlled manually though, people. Okay. Don't just assume the lights are running on automated patterns because there's really no way for you to prove such a claim. Now just be honest with yourselves and question why this is happening. The only logical conclusion is that you're merely being subjected to yet another level of government control over your life. They'll bottleneck you over here so that in some other location, traffic can be manipulated to keep whoever is traveling there in a state of maximum frustration. And that frustration is the perfect excuse for them to take away your car and take away your freedom. You know, eventually, they may even have you begging them to take your car away from you. As always, much love, much respect, and thanks for watching.